Okay, Honor, that's streaming now. You can go ahead.
That's great. Okay, Mayor, ready to start?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. You're all very welcome to this, our July meeting, and a glorious sunny afternoon here. I also want to take this opportunity to welcome anyone that may be watching the meeting through our live stream. You're also very, very welcome indeed. Now, before we get into the meeting proper, there is an outstanding issue from last month's meeting.
Sorry, Mayor, can we just do the prayer and the roll call first?
I beg your pardon. Sorry, Honor, just ask Honor to do the prayer and we'll do the roll call and then I'll come on to.
Okay, Anam Nahargs and Vic, Spirit Nave, Amen. Cur the Vanik Dur and Gunnar Shaw, August Troig Shin and our good Eber, her son, the Fobble, 3 Kier Star Dana, Amen. Anam Nahargs and Vic, Spirit Nave, Amen. I'll do the roll call vote now, Mayor. So, Councillor Donald Barry.
Present.
Councillor Joanne Bailey.
On show.
Councillor Joe Conway, we've apologies. Councillor Davy Daniels.
On show.
Councillor Pat Fitzgerald.
On show.
Councillor Susan Gallagher.
On show.
Councillor Jim Griffin.
On show.
Councillor John Hearn. Councillor John Hearn.
On show. On show.
Councillor Joe Kelly.
On show.
Councillor Eddie Mulligan.
On show.
Councillor Jason Murphy.
On show.
Councillor Lola Sullivan.
On show.
Councillor Jody Power.
On show.
Councillor Eamon Quinlan.
On show.
Councillor Frank Quinlan.
On show.
Councillor Mary Roach.
Here, Honour.
Councillor Seamus Ryan.
Present.
And Councillor Adam Wise.
On show.
Handing back to you, Mayor, now.
Thank you. I was jumping ahead of myself a bit there. There is an outstanding issue from our last meeting, the meeting regarding the election of Deputy Mayor, and I'm going to hand over to Fergus Galvin to take us through this. Thank you, Fergus.
Thanks, Mayor. As the Mayor said, I suppose we have an outstanding issue relating to the election of the Deputy Mayor at our last meeting. And I suppose, in essence, we probably concluded the process slightly prematurely the last time out, in that we held an election that was not, I suppose, procedurally correct, or when we went back checking it out after the meeting, in accordance with the provisions of the Section 37 of the 2001 Local Government Act. And that prescribes that where you have three, or where you have more than two people, as in running for the election as the Cathaoirleach of a council, that, and where one of those, say if we have three people or more, where one of those does not get an overall majority of the members present and voting at the meeting, that we then need to eliminate the lowest candidate and proceed to have a second poll or fourth poll as required. And I suppose what happened at the last meeting is that we held an election for the Deputy Mayor. We had three candidates, and in order of the way they worked out, I think it was Councillor Jason Murphy received the highest number of votes at 8, Councillor Jody Power the next highest number of votes, and then Councillor Jim Griffin. And at the time, Councillor Jason Murphy was declared the winner of that poll. But in essence, what should have happened and what needs to happen at this stage to conclude the process is that we should have eliminated the lowest candidate, who was Councillor Jim Griffin, and then proceeded to have a second poll then between the two remaining candidates, which were being Councillor Jody Power and Councillor Jason Murphy, to decide the outcome of the election. So I said, where we stand at the moment, our view, and we've taken some legal advice on this as well in the interim, is that the decision that was taken at the AGM was procedurally incorrect and not in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act of 2001, and that we now need, I suppose, to conclude that process in terms of finishing out the process that we commenced on, i.e. that we will proceed to exclude Councillor Jim Griffin from the election and hold a further poll then between the two remaining candidates that have been proposed and seconded as being nominees for the post. That, I suppose, is in essence where we stand, Mayor. And if any of the members have any questions on the matter, I'd be quite happy to answer at this stage. Otherwise, I think we should proceed to I suppose conclude the process that we started at the last meeting.
Councillor O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, you know, this is disappointing, absolutely, for everybody. But, you know, rather than be petty about it, I think that we elected Jason on the night, and I suppose he went out and the goodwill of the people, and they congratulated him and everything. I presume that it's going to be straightforward enough. It's just a pity, because it just makes little of the mayor if we have to go and make changes now.
Councillor Quinlan.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, okay, we have to follow through this process. I suppose I would just signal a cautionary comment that, you know, if we get into the habit of people not raising the issue there and then on the night, we open ourselves up to decisions from 6 months ago or a year ago being actioned by councillors. And I suppose the issue is that if we have this happen again or anything like it, you know, if Jason had chaired something in the last month, what does that mean then? Do we invalidate that meeting? Do we invalidate the bylaws or decisions that came from that meeting? You know, Kerry Council had this issue some years ago over possibly not quite properly elected councillors, and it put them in legal hell for many years. And I think that, you know, to be safe, we should just simply not strip someone of a deputy morality that they were given in good faith, and that we all essentially nodded our heads on the night. Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor David Daniels.
Yeah, Mayor, I think it's regrettable this has happened. Look, and my view on this now is Jason, Councillor Murphy won it on the night, and I feel we should leave it at that now and get on with the business of the meeting, if that's agreed to commit members.
Councillor Donald Barry.
Yeah, look, I know people nodded their head at it on the night, but look, we went with the procedure that we were given. If Fergus is saying there now that election was invalid, I think it should be just invalid and a fresh election made between whoever wants to put their name in. I don't know if Fergus can tell me, is it right that you now start the procedure again with eliminating the lowest person, or should you just start a fresh election for the deputy mayor? And so that there's no cock-ups this time with it.
Thanks, Tom. Councillor Joe Kelly.
Yeah, I agree with the previous speakers. This is a very unfortunate situation, and certainly all of the makings of any of Councillor Murphy, or indeed any of the councillors. It's just one of these things, and certainly whatever the result of the process we're now engaging in, I would hope that Councillor Murphy remains the deputy mayor. The council was elected on the night, as I said, through no fault or favour of any councillor in this forum. It's just the way it went. It's unfortunate. I think we have to put it down to experience. I don't believe it'll ever happen again. And I think that reaffirming, if that's what's needed, Councillor Murphy's deputy mayorship at tonight's meeting is the best way to proceed, whatever way that is. But I hope that that's the result that comes out of it.
Councillor Jim Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Mayor, I suppose on the night, had I known that was the way we were supposed to do it, I would have been quite happy to remove my name. It would have been removed anyway. I would have been quite happy to vote accordingly. But I suppose, look, it's a democratic process, and it's good for us that we put our names forward to go for mayors. It shows that we have all ambition and that we want to see Waterford City and County Council moving forward, that we really like the job we do. And I would agree with Councillor Barry that we start into a fresh election, whether that's tonight or at a later date. But I would support Councillor Barry that we have a re-election and votes tonight again.
Councillor Jason Murphy.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I suppose along with, it's a bit awkward for me to speak on it, as I was the victor on the night. But having said that, I suppose what's important here, Mayor, is the dignity and integrity of the position. And I suppose I have to look above party politics or personalities in relation to this. And going forward, what we have to have is the integrity of the position maintained. I suppose in that state, if we're going to have a competition here tonight, I think to simplify it, I would withdraw my name from the competition, because whoever is elected here tonight needs to have the full backing of the council to retain the dignity of that position. So if we're going to go for a competition, I think I will withdraw my name from that. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Joe Kelly.
Sorry, Mayor, you already called me in.
Sorry, yeah, your hand was still up, I beg your pardon. Councillor Jody Power.
Hey, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think it goes back to Fergus to let us know the legality of where we are, but there's no point in us debating on what we need to do and what we don't need to do or whatever. It's what's the law, so that there's no ambiguity going forward, as Jason said. So I do admire Jason's effort there and putting forward in conciliatory for everybody here tonight and the dignity of the position as well. So basically, if Fergus could let us know what the full legal position is, so that we don't beat around the houses for the rest of the night and just get on with it. Thank you.
Councillor Adam Wise.
Thanks, Mayor. To quickly look, I think Jason's shown a lot of respect to the position there. I think Jody's right as well. We don't need to spend all night on this. If Fergus says that we need to take a vote, and we need to take a vote, if nobody wants to contest Jason, then he'll go through unanimously, and I think that's agreed. What should happen, the position of deputy mayor is a position of honour, and you define honour by saying it's the quality of knowing and doing what's morally right. And I think doing what is morally right this evening would to keep Jason in place, and that the full council backs this, and that we don't have to turn it into a competition. I think we'd look very silly in front of the public if we have a vote 2 months later for a position. Thanks very much, Mayor.
And finally, Councillor John Hearn.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I don't know if you can hear me. I find it very difficult to hear the meeting. But I think the same thing. I think if we made a mistake, you correct it, and we follow through on a vote. If we make a mistake, just correct it. Thanks again, Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor Hearn. Look, I think everybody's that wanted to have their say has had their say. I think it's important that this is done, that's procedurally, it's done correct. And I think that's what Fergus has outlined for us at the start there. So what I'm going to do now, if there's any nominations for the position of Deputy Mayor, I will take them.
Mayor, can I just ask if that's the right procedure? Are we starting from zero on the deputy mayoralty, or are we doing as Fergus said and eliminating the person who got the lowest number of votes?
Beg your pardon. Yeah. Fergus, you might just clarify for me there, please.
Yeah. Yes, Mayor. What I suggested and our advice would be that we would continue with the process that we started at the last meeting, as in that we eliminate the lowest candidate that we had the last time, and then hold a poll between the two remaining candidates, which would be Councillor Jody Power and Councillor Jason Murphy.
Thanks, Councillor Roach, for pointing out that. So that's then I think to eliminate Councillor Jim Griffin. Okay, and we will take a poll between Councillor Jason Murphy and Councillor Jody Power.
Mayor, at this point, I think I made it clear that I will withdraw from the second round, if you like, if that's what we're doing now. And if Jody wants to remain in it, I'm happy to support Jody. Thank you.
Can I just ask, Mr. Mayor, would that be procedurally, would that be correct? Because I mean to say, on the night, Jason, you got the most votes on that particular night. So, okay,
Fergus, you might just outline there, is that procedurally correct?
Yeah.
I am a little bit uncertain there, to be honest, because I'm, sorry, forgive me now for a bit on this one, but like if somebody withdraws their name halfway through a poll, I'm not sure that's acceptable or procedurally correct, but at the same time, there's no precedent for it, and I don't think it's covered anywhere in our standing orders that I'm aware of. I don't know if you can advise on that, but I think that
I think we're bound to have a vote on the two remaining people because we're mid-flow on a procedure.
That'll be my view on it.
So I think councillors,
advice.
we need to actually have a roll call vote with both Councillor Murphy and Councillor Power, and you indicate whether you're voting for, against, or abstaining from the vote as it stands now. So, Mayor, if you're happy for me to proceed on with that, I will.
I'd ask you to proceed along that line, those lines, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
So again, for clarity, if you can indicate if you're voting for Councillor Murphy, Councillor Power, or abstaining when I call your name. Councillor Donald Barry.
Look, because of what happened on the night, I'm going to give my vote this time to Jason Murphy.
Councillor Joanne Bailey.
Councillor Power.
Councillor Davy Daniels. Councillor Davy Daniels. You're on mute, Davy.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Pat Fitzgerald.
Power.
Councillor Susan Gallagher.
Councillor Power.
Councillor Jim Griffin.
Councillor Power.
Councillor John Hearn.
Councillor Power.
Councillor Joe Kelly.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Eddie Mulligan.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Jason Murphy.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Lolo Sullivan.
I think this is terrible, but Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Jody Power. Councillor Jody Power.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Eamon Quinlan.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Frank Quinlan.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Mary Roach.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Seamus Ryan.
Councillor Murphy.
Councillor Adam Wise.
Councillor Murphy, and I think fair play to Councillor Jody Power there for the decision he made there.
So the vote is 12 for Councillor Murphy and 5 for Councillor Power.
So I declare, sorry, just a moment, please. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand, okay? Yeah. I declare Councillor Jason Murphy elected Deputy Mayor. Sorry, Councillor Fitzgerald, you wish to say something?
Yeah, I think it looks worse now, Mayor, to be quite honest with you, because a candidate stood that voted for somebody else.
That's up to that candidate, Councillor Fitzgerald.
It's not up to a candidate to put his name forward and then vote for somebody else.
Sorry, Councillor Fitzgerald. I mean, I have no control over who a candidate is going to vote for. And Councillor Jody Power decided that he was going to vote for Councillor Murphy, and so be it.
I think it's a proper shambles now.
Well, you're entitled to your opinion. Councillor Frank Quinlan.
I'd like to congratulate Councillor Murphy, and I would like to congratulate Jody Power for doing the honourable thing there. Fair play to him. That was a lovely thing to do. Fair play.
Okay, so Councillor Murphy, I want to congratulate you once again on your election as Deputy Mayor, and I have no doubt that we'll be working well together. I think we already spoke about this. It's unfortunate, the procedural mix-up, but look, these things happen in politics. It was unfortunate that it happened this time, but I'm glad to see we've come through it, and we now have you're now elected, duly elected properly. And congratulations once again.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank you for that. And I'd like to thank my proposer and seconder. I actually think this evening has been a good evening for politics. A lot of people are very cynical about politics. And I must congratulate Jody. It took a very brave and a very moral person to do what he did here this evening. And I think he's gone up in a lot of people's estimation. And people had a very high estimation of him before this. And I think people watching this now will have a probably greater understanding of politics. And I'd just like to congratulate Jody and the people who voted differently this time around. I think it says a lot about this council, and I'd like to thank the people for that, male and female. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I propose to move along with the agenda. Votes of sympathy and congratulations. Councillor Eddie Mulligan.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I'd like to propose a vote of sympathy to the Cavalieri family on the recent death of Sandro Cavalieri. I think he's been an icon in inclusion within the city and the advancement of the city from a culinary aspect. Back in the 80s, when pizza weren't but known on American TV shows on television, Sandro brought Italian dining to Waterford, opening up down by the car stand. And certainly for me, it brings many cherished memories of my teenage and early 20 years getting takeaway pizzas. And Sandro and his family have gone on to be a huge influence in the Italian dining experience within Waterford, within restaurants, within the city centre, within Dunmore East, and most recently they're offering opening at the museums. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mulligan. Councillor Quinlan, Frank Quinlan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to be associated with that vote of sympathy also for the Cavalieri family. And also, I would like to propose a vote of sympathy for the late Dominic Hearn, who died on Friday and who was buried at lunchtime today. He was a very, very nice man. I knew him very, very well, and he was the funniest man I ever knew. And he was associated to a band called the Bottle Brothers. And it just hits home really what this pandemic is doing to a lot of people, because 18 months ago, he would not have done what he done only for this pandemic. And I think we really have to kind of think about people that are unemployed and are affected over the last 18 months with this virus, because the likes of him, he would be still here today only for he lost his job 18 months ago. And he was just the nicest, funniest man you will ever meet. And I would like to have a 1 minute silence for him today, if you don't mind, please. Thank you.
Councillor Lolo Sullivan.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd also like to be associated with, I called him Dom, as opposed to Dominic Hearn. Absolute legend and great fun. He had good word for everybody he met. Also, Phyllis Lenihan of Donna Bratton, great lady, really, really well known in her community. And William Murphy of Newtown Hill. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Donald Barry.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, just I think we should send congratulations to all those who are taking part in the Olympic Games starting at the weekend. I think we have one local man here representing us, and I'm sure he'll do us proud, and his family and the country and the city. So just a word of congratulations and best wishes to all Olympians. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Eamon Quinlan.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to offer a vote of congratulations on behalf of the council to Justina Tror and the rest of the Top of the City Gardens group, who have created an exceptional asset to the top of the town, just off Barrack Street. They did their official opening about a fortnight ago. Councillor Kelly in his role as mayor, Councillor Donald Barry were there, and to have a community take a piece of public land and transform it so thoroughly and spend so much money on it and time on it, it's something I think we should be congratulating them. So thanks, Mayor.
Thanks very much, Councillor. Okay, I propose we take a moment's silence to remember those that did lose their lives. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, we have 2 sets of minutes for approval. A meeting, Metropolitan District meeting held on the 21st of June 2020. Proposer?
Sorry, Mayor.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mayor.
Yes, sorry,
Councillor Mulligan here.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a vote of congratulations. I didn't say it because I wanted to get in on Sandra there, and I thought one of my other colleagues would cover it, but a vote of congratulations for Seamus Power, who
absolutely, yeah,
from West Waterford, who just won an international PGA event over the weekend there. It's actually a massive achievement, not only for himself, his family, but also for Waterford, and certainly a sportsman we should all be very proud of.
Yeah, I think we'd all like to be associated with that, Councillor Mulligan, and thanks for bringing that up. Now, as I said, 2 sets of minutes there. The first one, Metropolitan District meeting held on 21st of June.
Proposed, Mayor, Councillor Roach.
Proposed, Councillor Roach. Seconder?
Mayor, I'll second it, Mayor.
Seconder, Councillor Pat Fitzgerald. And the annual general...
Mayor, just on the first set of minutes.
Yeah, I'll come to you. I just want to get a proposal for the second set, if you don't mind, and then I'll come back to you.
No worries.
The annual general meeting held on the 21st of June. Can I have a proposer? Anyone?
I'll propose them, Mayor Adam.
Councillor Wise, and a seconder?
I'll second it, Jody Power.
Councillor Jody Power. Now, matters arising, omissions or errors on the minutes are matters that are not dealt with under the agenda.
Thanks, Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Roach is first, then, and then Councillor Kelly.
Thanks,
Mayor. Just twice in the minutes of the last meeting, Mayor, it was agreed that Housing would organise a meeting between the members and the Housing Department over Mount William, and just it hasn't happened, and I would just like to know when that's happening, Mayor. I don't think we should get it dropped. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Kelly.
I'm all good, Avera. Just a correction to the minutes, Mayor.
Yeah.
I raised the issue of the removing of the plaque by the Bishop's Palace to the side where the Memorial Garden is, and that was to do with the International Brigades, that plaque and that monument, and it was recorded in the minutes as 9/11. So that there was just a mix up there. It's not 9/11. So if it could be corrected to the plaque to do with the international brigades that went to Spain for the Civil War, that would be perfect. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, and just on that, Councillor Kelly, as Secretary of the Friends and Family Group of those that did go to Spain, I've been in touch with Eamon McEnany, and he's assured me that the plaques are in safekeeping at the moment and will be put down adjacent to the monument itself. But thanks for raising that. Councillor Jody Power.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just in support of Councillor Roach there, the Mount William estate up there, that the Housing Association did write to the council, and as of yet, they haven't had a reply to that. And that's over 2 months ago. So in the interim, where we're waiting for a tenancy management officer to be appointed, could they at least acknowledge the letters and the correspondence that the council had from the Residents Association of Mount William? Thank you, or the Williamstown Glen estate. Thank you.
Is Ivan want to respond to that?
Yeah, Mayor, apologies about the meeting. That it's holiday season and the key officials are away this month. In relation to Councillor Power and the correspondence, I suppose there has been a bit of confusion because letters went everywhere. If I'm being honest, they would have gone to a number of different directors, and we just need to get a coordinated response, but we'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to reports. And the first person
Mayor, I have my hand up.
Yeah, I see there. Just the first person I see up is Councillor Jody Power, or is that from the previous matter, Jody?
This is the previous matter.
Previous.
Right. Councillor Pat Fitzgerald. Your mic, you're muted, Pat.
Oh yeah. Regarding Mount William, I was told that the residents had asked for a meeting with the planning office, and it was granted. Like there's in the minutes of the meeting, or that the reply from the executive was that they would grant a meeting to the residents of Mount William.
Okay. I'm going to take three at a time. Councillor Jason Murphy.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of quick issues. The first issue just concerns the impact of...
hand there. Did you get it?
Sorry.
I raised the hand there. Is it working?
Sorry, I'll come to you in turn, Councillor.
Yeah, I don't mind happening. I just put
sorry.
up.
Yeah. Sorry, just a couple of issues there. The first issue pertains to the infill housing, the council infill housing here in Larchville. I've had a petition from the residents in the small square adjacent to that development, and basically the petition is asking that the council would look at resurfacing the road in that small square, which was churned up as a result of the building traffic there and the footpaths. Is that something that our roads department could look at, putting that right? Is there any money there? They put up a lot in fairness over the construction period, and I think it's the least we can do as a council to put back the surface as it was. My second point is in relation to some old derelict commercial properties that are in old residential areas, and I'm talking about old commercial properties that are no longer in use, like the old Walls shop on Morrison's Avenue, the old Strand Electric on Leamy Street, and there was a kind of a sweet shop on the corner of Ardna Grain and Griffith Place. They've been derelict for many years now, some of them over 10 or 15 years. Can our planning department have a look at this and see, can we turn these areas into productive use, maybe into social housing, or indeed sell them on for private housing, get people living in them? And my last point is in relation to the outdoor furniture in our city centre. I've been in and around the city centre quite a lot lately, like a lot of people, and I've noticed a lot of the furniture is not really matching, and it's not giving the right impression of our city centre. Is there any regulations that we can put in place to make this furniture kind of uniform? Some of it looks like it's just like someone has not really put much thought into it and has fired some furniture out, tables and chairs that don't match at all. It really doesn't look right. Can we have a look at that and just put in some uniformity? I think it's the least we can expect as Ireland's oldest city and one of our main tourist destinations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eamon Quinlan.
Thanks, Mayor. That was quick. Two main issues, Mayor. The first one is in relation to Belmont Heights and Abbeylands in Ferrybank. Both of these estates are owned by Waterford City and County Council, so the people in them are our tenants. However, there's a problem that we have, that's they're in County Kilkenny. So when it comes to elections, they have to vote for their councillors in Kilkenny, but yet they ring Waterford-based councillors for any of the issues that they have in terms of maintenance or issues in their estate or in their homes. To the best of my knowledge, these could possibly be the only people in Ireland who can't vote for their local councillor. Even prisoners can vote in elections, Mayor. They're ringing me, but they have no ability to influence who represents them from the Waterford side. I would ask Waterford Council to enter into a discussion with Kilkenny Council to come to an agreement that perhaps we would pass the maintenance obligations and other such estate maintenance issues to Kilkenny County Council so they can have a vote on who they go to with their problems in the future. And we could then obviously recompensate them financially for any works they undertake to our tenants. The other issue, Mayor, is in relation to the schools in Tramore, the derelict ones. Now that the Clúid isn't going forward with their housing accommodation build on the Stella Maris school site, that means CBS and Stella Maris are both now vacant in the heart of Tramore. Would it be possible for the council to look at placing a compulsory purchase order or straight purchase on both of these sites so that we could retain them in public ownership and then liaise with the Department of Education to use these educational assets going forward and save them having to find a greenfield site later on? That's my two. Thanks, Mayor.
The final person in this roundup, Councillor Jim Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor. I suppose first, Mayor, just on the 6 beaches that we have the warning out for that it's unsafe to swim in. Like I find it hard to see that you can't swim down around Newtown Pier, but yet a couple of 100 yards out towards the Gillamine, it's okay. So I think we need to look at what's happening in that area and rectify it for once and for all. I certainly will be bringing up the pumps down in the pier at the SPC environmental meeting tomorrow. And lastly, Mayor, it's not for the last meeting of the year. I would like to stick in my constituency, but I brought this up over 3 years ago now. And it's the latter part of the airport road, Ballygarn, namely the residents in the Ballygarn area where the road narrows. I suppose years ago they were led to believe that there would be a big new road going over by the new racecourse to Tramore and that airport road would be sufficiently finished. But that didn't materialise, and there's 11 residents and 2 farms now left on that stretch of the road. And this is their warning. There's going to be a catastrophic accident sooner rather than later. And I don't think we can ignore that warning, Mayor. It may be some of them exiting to try and get to work or trying to maintain their hedgerow or paint their pillars and their gates, or it might be someone travelling that section of the road at extremely fast speeds, because it is now a rat run for people living in Dunmore trying to avoid Williamstown and all that goes with the Dunmore Road trying to get in for work. I've met with all the residents, Mayor, and they're not trying to put huge expense on the council, but what they want us to do tonight, if possible, is to agree to try and make the speed limit down to 50 kilometres and that the electric signage be reduced accordingly, and that not just a traffic calming measure put in place to see if the speeds are well exceeding 80. They're also asking, Mayor, that we write to the superintendent, which I've spoken to Sergeant Gavin Hegarty on this, to express a wish that the Gardaí can stay in any of their driveways to monitor the road speed. When we go up to Ballygarn, beyond Ballygarn on the airport road and ask the Gardaí to come down there, the Gardaí say there's no safe place. They are now happy for the Gardaí to use their driveways to stand there, park their car and take the speed limit as people pass. But I'm just heeding their warning, Mayor. A catastrophic accident is going to happen there sooner rather than later if we don't do something about it. And thanks for the little bit of extra time, Mayor.
Not at all. Now we'll go back to Ivan Grimes in relation to the Larchville.
Certainly we can look at the issue around resurfacing. I'm not sure.
I'm at a council meeting.
Sorry, sorry. If you could I'd ask the councillors if they could put their mute their mic. Thank you very much. Sorry, Ivan, if you can continue.
Yeah, sorry, Mayor. I was saying certainly we can look at it whether it can be done as part of the housing contract, but I'll certainly look into it. Councillor Quinlan, in relation to council estates in Ferrybank, I think I'll take that. We have over 200 tenancies in County Kilkenny, and that's, I suppose, a legacy from history, really. I suppose our principal concern is ensuring our tenants get good services, and we strive to do that. There was the issue of transferring the houses to Kilkenny County Council was raised by Kilkenny County Council in their submission to the boundary review a few years ago. It wasn't something that we were prepared to support at the time, but it is something that maybe we can review over the next couple of months, and I'll have a conversation with my counterpart in Kilkenny. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Fergus Galvin, your response regarding the roads?
Yeah, there are two questions there. Councillor Griffin had one in relation to water quality at Newtown Pier in Tramore. That's an issue that we're well aware of. And I suppose there's two particular issues there, and they're historic, I suppose, in nature at this stage. One relates to the pumping station that's there. There has been upgrade. This is obviously an Irish water plant, and we've been in regular contact with Irish Water in relation to this. There have been upgrades to the pumping station there over the last couple of years, which has mitigated the risk of pollution there somewhat, but there is still an ongoing risk there that will require, I suppose, a very significant level of investment to resolve in the medium to longer term. But in the meantime, we are monitoring water quality up and down the county at our bathing waters, beaches, and as and when if we do come across any instance of pollution or exceedances in terms of the biological quality of the water, we will be advising the public of these swimming restrictions or otherwise. In relation to the road safety issue at Ballygarran, this has been brought to our attention on a number of occasions. We did put in a range of traffic calming measures at that location a couple of years ago, including electronic signs, a whole series of warning signs and lining on the roads and horizontal yellow lines across the road, etc., on both approaches to this area. We would have got the electronic signs fixed there recently. They had been out of action for a period of time. There is, I suppose, we will look at it again and see are there further measures we can put in place there. The question of the speed limits is one that we will look at, I suppose, in the overall context of things that run this year. Speed limits are set by a special bylaw, and we are due to undertake an overall review of our special speed limit bylaws across the city and county starting later on this year. And we will be back to the council with proposals. So I suppose that will be the appropriate time to make submissions with respect to putting or to changing or amending special speed limits. In the meantime, we will have another look at it. I mean, the original plan that was there, God knows, many years ago at this stage to upgrade the airport road and link across to Tramore. I think it's unlikely that in the short to medium term that's going to transpire at this stage. So we're going to have to look and see what we can do with respect to the existing road to try and make it as safe as possible. We will also liaise with the Gardaí and see if there's something that the Gardaí would either look for us to do, or if there's any suggestions that they may have or any assistance that they might be able to render to the Gardaí with respect to improving safety on that particular stretch of the road. There were the two questions there, Mayor. I think there was a couple of questions there for planning for Liam, if he's there.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Galvin. Liam.
Yes, Mayor. Just Councillor Murphy's queries in relation to Section 254s and the uniformity of street furniture that's been provided. We're working with our colleagues in economic development to address that particular issue. I suppose, you know, we're in particularly unusual times at the moment, and that all businesses are striving to get open as quickly as possible, and they're sourcing furniture where they can. But we are operating, or we're administering, a grant scheme on behalf of Fáilte Ireland, and economic development are administering that scheme, and will work with the property owners to ensure that the furniture that's financially supported by Fáilte Ireland and by the local authority is of a suitable standard. Derelict sites, I suppose that's something that we keep under a review generally, and if the council are aware of, councillors are aware of any particular sites that you'd like us to investigate, certainly would welcome any submissions from yourselves or any suggestions in that regard, but it's something that we are keeping under active review at the moment.
Mayor, I made two suggestions. Is it okay if Liam goes ahead and investigates those two suggestions, those two schools?
Yep.
Yep. Great. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor, I can come back on that. Yeah, the CPO of the two schools in Tramore, it's certainly something that we'll talk to our colleagues in property management about. It wouldn't be a function of the planning department, but certainly we'll work with our colleagues to see if we can resolve that issue.
Thank you very much. Our next three councillors then would be Councillor Donald Barry, Councillor Eddie Mulligan and Councillor Susan Gallagher in that order, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, just a few items there. Look, some councillors, we have received representation concerning problems arising throughout the course of a weekend from residents living in the new council apartments there on O'Connell Street. And there's also residents living opposite these apartments there. It was described in the email as a 3-day festival. And as we know, there are families now, some with newborn children, live in these apartments, which are situated in the middle of a current outdoor hospitality services area. At this stage, there's no music. So when there is, it's going to get an awful lot worse there. If we want to develop this area into a nighttime entertainment and daytime area, as set out in the Cultural Quarter plan, and not only during this summer, but long term, we need to find a medium solution that is acceptable to all living in the area and the business owner and the business owners. Having residents like living in this area, that's also part of the Cultural Quarter plan. So I'm calling on all sections of the council concerned, housing, environment and corporate, and those involved in the Cultural Quarter development and all other stakeholders, businesses and residents living in the area to work together now and find a solution for this problem before it gets any worse. And it's for the betterment of all in the area, business and residents. Only yesterday I see an elderly gentleman on a motorised wheelchair stuck on the footpath at Lower Grange. This stretch of footpath from Centra down towards the Golden Fry, it has 2 openings for residents to access their back gardens. However, at these locations, there's a step in the footpath of around 6 inches in height with no gradient, which makes it impossible for people in wheelchairs and others with limited mobility to proceed safely on their journey. They're forced to use the roadway there. And also at the Folly roundabout, the crossing point from the takeaway to the Ballytruckle side is not aligned, and there's no gradient on the Ballytruckle side. Just asking, could that be aligned and a gradient put in to make it easier and safer to cross? And just the last thing is in relation to, it's fantastic to see, and it's reassuring to see the temporary lifeguard station at the men's slip in Tramore. But I'm just requesting that a proper sign be erected on the sides of the hut instead of the word lifeguard put on the side with sticky tape. It doesn't look good to be using sticky tape for this important service in our premier seaside resort. So if the council could work with the relevant groups just to have a proper signage fixed on it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Eddie Mulligan.
Thank you, Mayor. First up, I see the footfall comparisons there for the city centre and their 2021 versus 2020. Just wondering, would it be possible for our next meeting to get a comparison versus 2019 prior to the pandemic? Because I suppose that really is our datum, getting back surplus to 2019 figures. Question 2 then is just in relation to, I brought Norkeys up the plenary, but just in relation to the Michael Street development. And there was a proposal presented to us in relation to a hotel and a recreational area. I'm just wondering, when can we expect to be presented with what is the recommended way forward from a planning point of view or an outline development point of view? At what date we can be presented with that? Question 3, I see there's in relation to the Leahaf scheme in Grace Dew, it's stated that 278 residential units are being held up because the developer hasn't got planning on it as yet. I know as a member of the LSL GEA Club, we're trying to extend into the community there, and we're probably nearly 10 years at this stage without our proper main entrance. And again, that community facility being of benefit to the local community. I'm just wondering, is there anything we as a council can do to assist, support, or help the developer in progressing that plan permission, because those units would be hugely welcome. And then my last question just is in relation to rubbish. I know I had correspondence with environmental housing and also Fergus Galvin in relation to the amount of rubbish being collected from the Halton sites. At the time, I was horrified to find there was 6 tons of rubbish being collected a week that included domestic waste, manure and other materials, costing approximately €70,000 per annum. At the time, I was assured that the council would be working with environmental in relation to addressing it, reducing the amount of rubbish and reducing the costs. I was just wondering, could I get an update on where we are in relation to working that, and has the amount of rubbish been reduced? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think the last one there was Councillor Susan Gallagher.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I have 4 questions. I was reading this morning about an initiative in another local authority called 300k Have Your Say. It allows the public to determine how to spend up to €300,000 by suggesting projects and then voting on them. Is there anything similar in Waterford for any amount of money, or is it, if not, is it something that could be considered in future budgets? Question 2, I spoke to a woman last week who received a letter from the council threatening a substantial enough fine for leaving her wheelie bin on the path. A couple of days later, I left my bin on the road and went out, and when I came home, it had been collected and left on the footpath. So my question is, where should the bin be left by me? And can the companies that collect the waste be written to as well if the bins shouldn't be on the path? I can understand the difficulties with leaving them on the footpath for people with disabilities. Third question is, there have been news stories about councils not drawing down funding for traveller accommodation. So for the most up-to-date information that we have available, that question is probably for Ivan, where does Waterford stand on this? How much has been drawn down? And lastly, question back to Liam on the outdoor furniture. Is there any stipulation that a certain percentage of seating or tables be appropriate for wheelchair users? Thanks very much.
Okay. O'Connell Street area, who's going to take that? Not that difficult. Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah.
Thanks, Ivan. Yeah.
Will I go ahead? Yeah.
Please, yeah.
I would have received a copy of the correspondence Councillor Barry is referring to, and I've had a discussion this morning with the Director of Planning, and we'll be looking at it, I suppose, both from a housing and a planning perspective. I would point out that, like, these apartments that have been developed, they are based in city centre locations, which by their nature are noisy anyway, and all of the units would have been allocated using choice-based letting. But leaving that aside, we don't want to ignore the impacts on the quality of life of our tenants. So it is something we'll be looking at. We'll also look at the signage on the lifeguard hut in Tramore. Just in relation to LIHAF in Grace Chew, the project, as you know, went to the board. Housing and planning will be engaging with the developer in the coming weeks, see what their plans are, because we do own an element of that land and we can put it to other uses. And finally, Councillor Gallagher, in relation to drawdown of capital funding from the Department for Traveller capital projects, we have a very low level of activity there. We've been trying to advance projects under the tap. I'd hope that there will be a Part 8 back at the September meeting in respect of Green Road, and we have proposals for other developments. We did actually submit a claim to the department about 18 months ago for about €200,000 for works that were carried out in Dungarvan, at the halting site in Dungarvan, and we have, to date, we haven't been paid that money by the department, and we're continuing to follow up with them. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks very much. Liam, you want to take the questions from Councillor Mulligan regarding Footfall and Michael Street development?
In relation to Michael Street, we don't currently have a proposal for the members. There isn't, we haven't had anything submitted to the planning department formally. It's something that the chief executive is working on at the minute, and I'll have to maybe ask him if he can respond to you directly in relation to that, what progress is on that site. It's between property management and the chief executive's office. We have seen some proposals, but they haven't been finalised, or they haven't been worked up to a point where we could either propose them as a Part 8 or, you know, work with the private sector to deliver them. The footfall figures, I think maybe if there's anybody from economic development, I think Lisa is on the line. She might be able to update the committee in relation to that.
Yeah, through the chair, thanks Liam. The footfall system we have in place uses the Wi-Fi access points at the moment. That system has been live since mid-November 2019 in advance of Winterval, so we don't have the previous 10.5 months using that system. We had a historic system which had got slightly problematic, so I can provide the 2019 figures, but due to the problems we have with the system, the changes in the methodology, they're unfortunately not directly comparable, but I can provide the 2019 figures.
Thank you very much, Lisa. In relation to Councillor Mulligan's other two issues, the Grace Jewel development and the rubbish at the hoarding site. Somebody take that from me, please.
I think, Mayor, I haven't addressed the question in relation to the LIHAF scheme at Grace Jewel.
Okay.
But I might take a couple of other questions there, just in relation to Councillor Barry had questions on roads and the footpaths at Lower Grange to the Folly. I think Alan Curran is on the line here, so I might ask Alan just to take a note of those and maybe arrange for an intersection of the two areas that Councillor Barry raised and see what needs to be done there. With respect to the Councillor Gallagher's, I had a couple of questions there. One was the 300k, have your say. It's not one I've come across, but that would be a matter that's entirely within the remit of the council. If at budget time the council wishes to put in an allocation and open it up for suggestions to the public, that's entirely a matter for yourselves. But come budget time later on this year in October. On the wheelie bins, there is some councillors here going back over the last number of months would have been, I suppose, raising issues in terms of people leaving wheelie bins out on footpaths for days on end, and we have taken action in relation to a number of people where that was a problem with blocking footpaths. There are a presentation of bin bylaws in place that the council adopted years ago that prescribe the periods in which you can leave your bins out. I don't know exactly what they are in terms of, but there is a prescribed period before and after the bin is collected of a number of hours, say both in the morning and the afternoon. I can certainly send the details on to Councillor Gallagher later on. But so it is governed by bylaws, and the time in which you can leave the wheelie bin out on a footpath or public road is restricted to a short period either side of the due collection time. The other question, Councillor Mulligan had a question in relation to the waste being collected at the hoarding sites. I don't have an update on it as yet, Councillor, and I'll talk to my colleagues in the housing section in relation to that and see is there progress we can look at that particular topic.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Galvin. Yeah. I'm going to move on now, and the next three councillors: Councillor Mary Roach, Councillor Pat Fitzgerald, and Councillor Joanne Bailey. Councillor Mary Roach.
Thanks, Mayor. Mayor, I know people are probably sick of hearing about the North Keys, but nobody, I guess, is more sick of hearing about it than the members of this council. And I'm concerned, Mayor, that we seem to be getting the same update every month, I guess, both here and at the Plenary Council. And I just want to know, Mayor, can we have details of what kind of personnel resources allocated within planning and economic development to that whole process? I have serious concerns, and I know some other members of the council do as well, Mayor, and I think we need to give this a little bit of focus now, perhaps over July and August while things are a little bit quieter on the other fronts, and I will talk to the other members of this council on that, but I think it's something we need to mark our cards on, Mayor, that the members have serious concerns. I certainly have serious concerns about this process, where it's come to, how it has got to here, and how we move it quickly, or as quickly as possible out of here. It seems to be extremely slow. But if we know what resource allocation in terms of people is there for that, that would be a start. Can I ask again for an update on when the two sections of the current River Shore walkway, two lovely sections, and the Environment Department have done fantastic work here on that walkway, and it's absolutely beautiful, but it needs to join up, and also to get further into town, if I could just have an update on where that's at. Also, the Millennium Plaza, I think this is about 5 years now in the asking, what is the update on the cleaning of the tensile structure at the Millennium Plaza? Liam, in terms of derelict housing, I brought it up, I think it was about 3, maybe 4 months ago at this stage, about a derelict site that backs onto both Phillip Street and Lower Yellow Road. And the entrance at Lower Yellow Road is actually, like, there's bollards, the whole path is blocked. And that section of the road there at Lower Yellow Road is actually way too wide for anybody to cross, particularly somebody in a buggy. And it's been years now blocked off, the path and the buildings. And you go in from both sides, and there seems to be, from what I can see, some kind of outbuildings and maybe even a large enough site in there. So I'd just like to know what's going on with that. And finally, for Fergus, I note that we have 2 new craft gardeners. I can't say I have noticed a huge leap in what we are doing in the People's Park, but maybe there are amazing plans on the way. So I would just like an update on what, if any, plans we have to upgrade. We've had half of the flower beds in the heart of the park have been undone now, and I appreciate COVID and all that has made it difficult, but that is outdoor work, and I think that really could be attained to, as we have planted out other areas that I would say of much more minor significance than that. And I'd like to know what's the update at the People's Park. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Pat Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mayor. The first issue I have is with a place called St. Mary's, Osmond House, Osmond Street in Waterford. Now, I believe this is a big derelict building, and the neighbours there that are living next door to it are kind of overrun with vermin, and seemingly the site that this building is standing on is infested with rats. It's got overgrown hedging, seriously overgrown hedging, which is blocking the light from the houses, and large trees growing very, very close to the power lines for that area. And the power lines have been reported to the ESB. I know the council can't do anything like that, but if they could just follow up and check to make sure that the work is done there. But as regards the house itself, it's a serious hazard to the immediate residents in that area. The second issue I have is from the footpath from Faitlick School to Faitlick Church. And this was a footpath. It's a new footpath that was put in there with a community scheme. It's well used. It was a fantastic job. But presently, it's overgrown. So anybody walking on the footpath is now pushed back out on the road again. So really, if we could get that, get the ditches cut back on that hill going up there, because the footpath is more of a hazard now than a help presently at the way it is. And the third issue I have is probably at this time of the year is not a problem, but water running from the public road into agricultural land. And I was down with a person in the Creek area this morning, and he's lost a lot of land to coastal erosion. And every year he has to pull his fences back from the cliff edge. It's a soft face, but we have quite what's making his problem even worse is the fact that there's water running from the roads right down through one of his gates and right down across his field, and it's cutting a big channel at the end where it kind of when it falls over the cliff. And really, there's drains very, very close to there, the real old drains that have been used for centuries to take the water off that particular section of the countryside, are now being ignored. And in some cases, they're kind of blocked up, and the culverts are blocked up, and all they need to be is cleared and the drains cleared, and the flow of water would revert back to its original course, which was used for centuries, and it wouldn't be going into this man's field. And I was just wondering, can whose responsibility is water off the roads? If we can avoid it at all, can it be avoided going in there, especially in areas like that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Joanne Daly, please.
Thanks, Mayor. One of the things is the update on the park as well. The fountain is in a bad way inside. I was in over the weekend, and I know there was works to start on. I'm just looking for an update on that, and obviously the flower beds and all that has been mentioned already. I know we spoke about roads earlier and how the RSA is about traffic management and the speed limits, but as you're driving out to Cork Road and you're passing Whitfield, it's 60 kilometres. But when you turn at for Butlerstown GA pitch, there's 2 signs for 80 kilometres right before the GA pitch. And children coming in, cars, I was just wondering if there's any way we could, look at that and the speed limits there, or maybe another caution sign, or the caution sign that's there is covered up by hedging. So just that I feel it's very dangerous. And especially with the come and go now with GA back. So just to have that. Regarding rubbish and taking home rubbish from seaside and from parks and around the city and county, could we look into getting more signs? A few years ago, I see you did that Take 3 for the Sea campaign in 2018. I wonder, could we revamp that that initiative, maybe new signs or new hashtags, you know? So before it was Take 3 for the Sea, but if we did Take 3 for the Sea, hashtag Waterford, you know, might drive home people in our county to take away their rubbish and have a sort of media present on that. And just on housing, there's a lot of people looking for 4-bedroom properties. I'm getting a lot of requests, and anything that's coming up on choice-based letting is 1, 2 and 3 beds. Is there anything coming forward soon on 4 beds? That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Just before I move on, there was a question asked by Councillor Susan Gallagher in relation to wheelchair accessible tables and seating areas, part of the outdoor setting. Maybe Liam, you might deal with that before we proceed with the other 3. Thank you. Liam? No.
Mayor, I'll follow up with Liam on that, but it's not my understanding as part of Section 254, there wouldn't be a requirement for disability seating, and similarly under the Fulch Ireland grant, but I'll clarify that for you, Liam.
Please do, yeah. Okay, the next 3. Sorry, we have to get the answers to those questions. Councillor Roach asked about the North Keys, the personnel dealing with the North Keys. Who's going to take that from me, please?
I might take it, Mayor, and maybe if Liam has anything to add, he might come in on it as well. In respect to the North Keys, I suppose there are 2 elements to it. One is the infrastructure that needs to be put in place to facilitate any development in the North Keys, and that's everything from the sustainable bridge, the South Plaza, and a whole raft of traffic management and roads measures over on the North Keys. Like, all of that is proceeding at a pace at the moment. The council has a dedicated technical team and external consultants who are responsible for bringing the various elements of that through to tender, through the procurement tender and contract award. And we would certainly expect to have the first of those contracts awarded and in place very shortly with respect to, say, the accommodation works on the South Keys. And following that, we'd expect, I think later on this year, to award a contract with respect to the construction of the Sustainable Transport Bridge and other measures on the North Keys. That's one element, I suppose, and that is proceeding at pace. There's funding allocations from the NTA and otherwise to support that. With respect to the overall, I suppose, in terms of the Chief Executive would have briefed Council on this previously. I mean, efforts are ongoing. I suppose it is the main objective and first priority with the Chief Executive in terms of sourcing alternative developers for that. And I understand the work is ongoing and a very significant level of the Chief Executive's time, and the Director for Economic Development's time is engaged in that at the moment. And I would expect that when they have something that when there's some news, good, bad, or indifferent, that a report will be furnished to the council on that just as soon as we can. With respect to the Shoe River Walk, we are currently finalising plans for the next phase of that, which is through the old Glanbia site across at through the woodlands there between Freshfields and sorry, I was only done the other day and I can't think of the name of it, but we're finalising plans for that at the moment. We need to do an appropriate assessment and screen it from an environmental point of view, because it's adjoining the Shoe River SAC. But all other things being equal, I would expect to make progress in the ground on that later on this year and to finish it out before the end of the year. There's about 300 meters or so of the section there. We are looking, I suppose, at the next phase of that, which would be, I suppose, probably the most difficult part, going from there back in towards the city centre. We'll be drawing up plans for later on this year, and we will advise council of it at that point. We'll move back to our discussion before we proceed with anything on that one. In relation to the plaza, we would have issued a contract there some weeks ago to a contractor to undertake painting and refurbishment works there. We were expecting a start on site there about 2 weeks ago. That painting hasn't happened, and we are engaged with a contractor at the moment to try and get an early start date and get that prioritised. Councillor Roche also mentioned the issue of craft gardeners. Yes, we had one start with us a couple of weeks ago, and the second individual started with us last week. They will take a number of months, I suppose, to make a difference, and in reality, it'll probably be well into late this year or early next year before we see any significant difference. But the focus will be, and which I make clear to Council before, will be on improving the standard of presentation in the parks in the city, including with the priority supposed being on the People's Park, on Wise Park, and the likes of the Pocket Park around the Bishop's Palace, and a few other areas of around the city centre as well. But I said the priority will be on bringing up the standard, but like it will take time because we're going to have to replant, relook at how we do stuff in certain areas, and it just will take time to manifest itself on the ground. In relation to Councillor Fitzgerald had a couple of questions there. One was on the footpath out at Fake Leg, between Fake Leg and Cheap Point. It's overgrown, and the primary responsibility with respect to stopping overgrowth out onto the footpath of public road rests with the local road, the adjoining property owners. I'll bring the matter out. I'll ask the area engineer to have a look at that on the ground outside and see. I suppose initially to make contact with the property owners, and secondly, is there any interventions that the council needs to make there? Councillor Fitzgerald's second question related to the water runoff from public roads onto private lands. That is provided for in the Acts, and there is and landowners with lands adjoining a public road must allow water drain off from the public road onto their land if there are no alternatives available. But I do note that he says some of the culverts out there are blocked from an older drainage system. Again, I'll ask the area engineer to have a look at those and see do we need to undertake some maintenance work on the old drains and culverts out there that might relieve the situation. Councillor Bailey had a couple of questions in relation to one with the fountain in the People's Park. We are currently doing some preliminary work on that at the moment. We had a contractor doing some investigative work on it there a few weeks ago with a view to informing a tender for the refurbishment of the fountain there, and we hope to make progress on that very quickly. In relation to the speed limit at Whitfield, as I mentioned earlier on, the special speed limit bylaws are up for review later on this year, and that's something that can be considered at that time. And I'll talk to the area engineer in relation to the existing, if there are signs or warning signage out there that's currently over or covered with vegetation, we'll have a look at that and see can we cut back at some of the vegetation to allow greater visibility of the signage in particular there. And Councillor Bailey's final question related to rubbish and campaigns. That the council did recently launch a Leave No Trace campaign through social media and other outlets, and we'll be pursuing that particular campaign over the next number of months with a particular emphasis on the beaches, parks and other amenity areas. I think, Mayor, that covers the questions that are on my list.
Okay, there was a question there from Councillor Bailey regarding the availability of four bed houses. Ivan, you might take that, please.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The vast majority of people who are on the housing list are actually eligible for 1 and 2 beds. The proportion of 4-bed qualified households would be fairly small, I would say, probably maybe 5 or 6% of the total, and tend to be concentrated in the city primarily, with the larger urban areas. The vast majority of the delivery pipeline is for 1, 2 and 3 bed, because that's the greatest need. We do include 4 beds in some of the larger developments, but our experience has been that they have in the past proved difficult to let. But if you have information on particular locations, Councillor, if you want to provide it to me, we can look at what the delivery options might be. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you very much. And did we get an answer to the fountain in the park, People's Park? We did.
Sorry, can I just clarify, the road I'm talking about is at the Butlerstown J pitch, not at Whitfield. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, my apologies, Councillor. Yeah, no, I have it noted correctly. I just had the wrong wording on it. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, Mayor, Osman House. Did anybody come back on that?
Sorry, no, you're right, Councillor. Osman House. Anyone?
That's a derelict site, Mayor. Maybe Liam might or comment on it.
Yes, Mayor, I can come back on that. It's something that I'll have to check out for Councillor Fitzgerald. I'm not sure whether or not it is currently on our list of derelict sites. If it is, I'll be able to brief you as to what the status of it is. If it's not, we'll certainly carry out an inspection to see whether or not it warrants inclusion on the list.
Okay.
One other point, Mayor, sorry, if I can, is just a matter that was raised by Councillor Gallagher earlier that I don't think was addressed. It's in relation to outdoor furniture and wheelchair accessibility. Just to say that we are working with the Irish Wheelchair Association in relation to that, and we've had correspondence backwards and forwards between ourselves and themselves to ensure universal access, both for wheelchair users to the furniture and also to ensure that the furniture doesn't obstruct the passage, the safe passage of pedestrians and particularly people in wheelchairs or with mobility issues. And there are also new guidelines which have issued from the department in this regard in the last week, which again we're ensuring we're fully compliant with.
That's great. Thank you, Liam.
Mayor, I wonder, would you ask Liam to just also address the issue of the house backing onto the Lower Yellow Road and Phillip Street? He didn't address that one.
Thank you, Councillor Roach. Yeah.
Yes, Mayor. Again, the same question, the same response, really, in relation to Councillor Fitzgerald's query. I'm not sure whether or not it is on our list of derelict sites, but now that I'm aware of it, now that you've raised the issue, I'll certainly follow it up and I'll come back to you with a response.
Great. Okay, thank you, everyone. I just want to remind people that we must finish by 7 o'clock tonight. Now we still have a number of people to come in, but we do have a good bit of time. But just ask people if they could stick to their 2 or 3 minutes, and we'll get through the business. Okay. Now the next three will be Councillor John Hearn, Councillor Jody Power, and Councillor Joe Kelly. Thanks very much, Councillor John Hearn.
Thanks very much, Mayor. And just I raised the issue with the square where the construction was with the new houses in Larchville, and the new houses are a credit to our own city council. But during the construction, roads had to be dug up. Sometimes water was cut off, sometimes lights went out, and everybody accepted that. And sometimes there was traffic jams with trucks and the rest of it, and hard to find parking. And everybody took it on board because we were so happy to get the infill housing that we accepted that's just the way it has to be to get it done. But a lot of the damage on the square is done from the construction traffic. And it would be wrong if the host community suffered with the detriment of their road because they hosted the construction site. So I think it's very important that we get that right and tarmac the square for the people involved. So we deeply appreciate it if we can. And also just on a good news story, just that over the weekend when the construction lads had gone away and the tarmac, there was cars driving up on it, that the residents directed the cars away and kept the cold water on the tarmac, so it wasn't destroyed for the construction workers. And just we'd like to thank the council for the recent lease of the rooms in Francis Court, because recently on an initiative by Vicky Butler, where Francis Court was adopted by the residents associations, and they painted up the 13 houses, weeded the place and planted flowers, and it goes to show when the council and the residents get together, they can do great work. And just on another point, I fished in Balmacaw with the Nolans and the Kellys. And I was down recently, to see the blockage of traffic down there with the new walkway. And we all welcome the walkway. It's absolutely stunning. But just, I was on to talking to Eleanor Halley from the local committee up in Carbally. And they said they had contacted the council to offer car parking facilities there. And they didn't get back to them yet. And they have a cafe up there and plenty of space up there where people could start off the walk and come back there for a cup of tea after. So thanks again, Mayor, for your time and for letting me.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Jody Power.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. First question, again, as Councillor Roche brought up, the North Quays are really important. They're a flagship development, not just for the city, but for the whole Southeast. And I kind of know that there must be a lot of engineering work happening at the moment, right, going on behind the scenes, but we're in the blind as councillors as to what's happening. So could we organise a council workshop to deal with the issue, so that we can actually ask all the questions that need to be asked with regards to the North Quays for early September? If that could be done, that'd be great. The second thing is, as Councillor Fitzgerald said, the footpaths into Cheek Point from the Fig Lake Church up to the school need to be cut back. The footpaths there, the grass going right onto almost on the road in some sections of it now, but also from the school down at Cheek Point itself on the left-hand side as you go down, that's all overgrown there as well. And talking about the new footpath now into Chick Point, where we have an ESB pole right in the middle of the new footpath that was put in, where people have to actually get off the new footpath onto the road when they pass it with buggies or in wheelchairs. So I know you know about it, Fergus, but when can we have an update as to when that pole might be removed? Again, going back to what's happening up in Carrickfergus of late, could we have an update as to what's happening in Carrickfergus and what the council are doing up there with regards to the travelling halting site there? I believe it's a concern for a lot of people now, the recent developments there, and I'd like to get an update on it. Last thing then is and I must really thank Liam McGee in the development plan for the designation of lands up there from the Bilberry goats, to make sure that they're accommodated. Now, we have the land being designated then for the goats as being open and amenity lands for them, but we have no idea about what the goats themselves are doing. Now, I'd hate to see that the goats who have been here in Waterford since the arrival of the Blah, and they're very much part of the Waterford, who we are here in Waterford. What's happening to the goats? What's happening to the herds? And are they in a good state? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Joe Kelly.
Just a couple of issues. I'd like to have an update in terms of the development or proposed development at the former Flynn's pub in Ferrybank. A lot of people in the area, although they welcome some development on the site, they want, that they're saying that they're being overlooked, that some of the building is going to be too high, looking into private property, and also concerns expressed about how the apartments will be eventually let, given various elements of antisocial behaviour in new estates and indeed in a lot of the stuff that we let out, Mount William being one of it. So what's the position on that? Where is it progressing to at the moment? Second one is on bin lorries and the damage that they're causing to curbs all over the city, and particularly here where I live in Hillview and also next door in Ashley Court. The curbs in Ashley Court in particular are in bits. I say every councillor experiences the same things. The bins are very big, heavy lorries. They reverse around corners. They're knocking curbs all over the place. They're taking chunks out of trees and so on. And I'm wondering, have the council any input or any control on that? Because they're doing untold damage and nothing seems to be done about it. The third question, Mayor, is on the Traveller site in Kilbarry. And I raised this a number of years ago and I don't think anything has happened. There's a wall built very close behind the houses, which are not in good condition anyway. And there were supposed to be upgrades and everything done, which I don't think happened. But if there were to be a fire in the houses, there's very little room to escape out the back of those houses through windows or whatever. The wall is nearly on top of them. It's a clear health and safety hazard to the people who live on that site. And I'm just sick of talking about it. So something needs to be done. And I'm wondering, what are we intending doing on it? I know Ivan is on that one and he'll give me some kind of an answer. The second last one is the ditch that runs from around the De La Salle pitch on the Clayboy Road all the way down practically to the old Swabies, or it's now called the Apple Green. It's grown out onto the footpath. I've seen people step onto the road and all of that. Very, very dangerous to do that on the Clayboy Road, one of the busiest roads in the city now. That ditch needs to be cut back. And indeed, by the ESB substation, there's trees out over their fence that you have to duck down to actually get under or get out onto the footpath. These are urgent matters because that road, as I said, is like a racetrack these days and something really needs to be done about it. And the last comment I'll make is this, Mayor, and it's about the fountain in the park that Joanne Bailey, Councillor Bailey raised, and we've all raised it for a long time now. I know Fergus said that it might be going out to tender and this and all of that. This has been going on forever. And I don't know by the end of the year will we even have a tender back in for that. But I'm saying that we should be doing something with a bit more effort, a bit more speed. I would say there's an awful lot of councillors on this call here today at this meeting will say that it's taken an awful long time when issues are raised and we hear something about work is being done and it's 3, 4, 5, I don't know, a year till something is done about it. I just think we need to move it on a bit more rapidly than that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Okay, a number of issues there. The first one, infill housing in Larchville, I think was already brought up, but maybe Ivan, you might just repeat the answer there, please.
Yes, Mayor, I did answer it earlier. I certainly will look at the damage caused by the construction, and we'll revert to the two councillors directly. In relation to Councillor Power's query about Carrickferris, as you're all aware, the Part 8 for the development of 7 new bays in Carrickferris was not approved to proceed. We are currently reviewing how to deal with the traveller housing demand in Carrickferris, and we'll revert to council in due course. When we've completed that, we're looking at a number of options. Councillor Kelly, in relation to the former Flynn's pub in Ferrybank, the Part 8 process for that commenced a couple of meetings ago. I think the public consultations period is still open. I could be corrected on that. It might have closed recently. We'll be bringing manager's report to this district meeting probably in September or October. And if people hadn't made contributions via the consultations, and if the consultations are still open, I apologise, I don't know exactly if they are. I'd encourage people to make submissions. In relation to Kilbarry, at the time of the tragic fire in Carrick Mines, all local authorities were required to do fire safety assessments of all traveller accommodation. So our fire services would have reviewed the situation in all of the halting sites and group housing schemes. The wall at the rear of the properties was not identified as a risk in that assessment of fire risk. Nevertheless, we have plans for a Part 8 to replace all of the existing housing in Kilbarry, and I'd hope to be in a position to publish that by the end of the year. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. In relation to the bilberry goats, famous bilberry goats, who's going to take this one?
I don't know, Mayor. I'm not too sure who owns them in terms of responsibility within the council. Doesn't really doesn't really sit within my patch as such, but I'll talk to our heritage officer tomorrow and ascertain what the status there or otherwise is there, and we'll arrange for a reply to go back to Councillor Power on that one directly. I'm not, to be honest, I'm not even too sure what role the council may have in it. I think it may well be a matter more for the Department of Agriculture rather than ourselves, as I think from my recollection, the herd may have a herd number and may well be registered with the Department of Agriculture, and if that's the case, it's the department that would have responsibility for the welfare or otherwise of the goats.
Okay. Just a number of other issues outstanding. The ditch on the Clayby Road, can we arrange to have that cut back?
I'll certainly talk to the area engineer, Mayor, in relation to that, and as I mentioned earlier on, in relation to a similar question, the responsibility for the maintenance of trees and hedges and other growth that spills out onto either a public footpath or a public roadway is the primary responsibility of the adjoining landowner. And but look, we'll have a look at it. If we can make contact with the landowners and get them to call back, we'll do so, and we'll have a look at it and we'll see what we can do in that particular instance. Councillor Kelly had a couple of questions there as well that I might address. While one was in relation to bin lorries doing damage, and maybe bin lorries and other delivery trucks maybe doing damage to curbs and signs and street furniture and otherwise in housing estates. Like, if people can give us direct reports in terms of time, states, registration numbers, we're quite happy to follow them up with the owners. And we have in some cases where our public property has been damaged, as in public the public infrastructure shall has been damaged. We have, and we will quite happily pursue where we know who the perpetrators are and when and where the damage was done. So we'd be quite happy to if people have details as to if a curb was damaged in a particular morning by a truck and a registration number, we'd be quite happy to follow that up with the operators directly and seek recompense for the cost of reinstating the damage that was done. Councillor Kelly also had a question in relation to the fountain in the People's Park, and while I'd accept it, it's frustrating in terms of the speed of getting stuff done, but I would remind the council, I suppose, in that, just as an example in that particular one, while we had intended doing some work on it earlier on this year for up to the 1st of May or the 7th of May, I think it was this year, there was a complete shutdown of the construction industry, and I couldn't even get somebody to visit the site to look at it, to do an assessment on it. So from that, and similarly last year we went through a number of COVID-related shutdowns and working restrictions, which have probably added months and months to to many of our projects. I mean, but having said that, we are acutely aware of that. We are pressing on with it, and we'll try and get the work done as quickly as possible.
Thank you very much, Fergus. I have three finals.
Hold on a minute. Mr. Mayor, Fergus, a couple of things for you. Workshop on the North Quays, and the other one then about the footpaths into Cheek Point and Fatal Leg, and the ESB pole in the middle of the footpath. And then go back to the Bilberry goats. They're very much part of our
Sorry, Councillor Power.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor Power. I'm not going to get into a discussion on the Bilberry goats. The other questions will get answered all right. Thank you.
Mayor, I suppose the workshop on our keys. I mean, if the council wishes to have a workshop on it, I'll certainly talk to my colleagues in the economic development and planning section and see if that can be arranged. If that is the wish of the council.
Yes.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. In relation to the ESB pole on the footpath, I don't know is a short answer, but I'll talk to the area engineer about the issues in relation to the coming back and the pole there because I don't have a date on it, but we'll get a response back to that.
Thank you. Sorry about that, Councillor Power, but I am conscious of time. You know, we have to be out of here at 7, and there is other items on the agenda as well. Now, 3 final speakers are Councillor Daniels, Councillor Frank Quinlan, and Councillor Lowell O'Sullivan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yep, Councillor Daniels.
Okay, Mayor, thank you. Mayor, having visited the Municipal Golf Club recently, I would like to compliment the staff on the pristine condition of the course. It's a lovely condition. Now, Waterford City Council may have previously agreed in principle to providing a driving range at the course in Williamstown. A design was put in place and put out to tender, with 3 tenders submitted at the time. Now, this project would have been raised, I must acknowledge, Councillor Chowney at the time. Now, such a project would be self-financing and a benefit to all ages, in all weathers. Funding is available for such projects in the department. They're allocating funding at this particular point of time. So my question to Director of Services, when can we see this going ahead and this development? My next issue, Mayor, regarding I'd like the Roads Department to consider installing some safety measures for pedestrians at St. Joseph's and St. Benilda's Church, Newtown. This is crossing it at a very busy junction in the road. There's a bend there or knuckle on that particular point of the road. An improvement could be put in place in the interest of public safety. I think it's vital at this particular time. I know from crossing at that point myself, it's you put your hands in your, it's dangerous, and it's so dangerous. My next point, Mayor, is an improvement of public lighting at the Vinery Somerville Avenue was scheduled to be installed. Has not happened as yet. It was agreed that this work would proceed, and I'd like to see it before the dark evenings come in. Now, I know Barbara has been helpful on this, but it hasn't materialised yet, so I would like to know when can I expect to see this would happen. As I said, it's vital to come in before the dark evenings. Now, again, further one there is, I'd like to know the historic graveyard at Ballygunner Temple, Mayor. I've had a lot of calls on this, on what department and what funding is available in such situation. A lot of the wall there has fallen out onto the road, and it's really in a sad state of a situation. So it's crumbling, some of the wall there, and it's pretty bad. So I'd like an update on that particular situation. Finally, Mayor, just we had planned dressing rooms for the pitches at the RSC at the top beyond the main pitch. I'd like to know at what stage is that at? And there also is a need there there was talk of providing an all-weather pitch at the RSC. And finally, Mayor, I won't mention the fountain in the park has been well covered. Just my final word to Fergus, will the lighting, when it's proceeding, I think some work has gone down underground, as I mentioned before, the wiring. Will that be utilised if we're providing the public lighting as we expect by the winter? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Frank Quinlan.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering, can we look at adding a few communication boards to local playgrounds and parks for children with special needs and that have communication problems to improve their experiences in public areas? Some of these kids are non-verbal and pre-verbal, and it would be really nice if they could enhance their experience by having some of these communication boards erected to have more accessible for children to play. As I said, it would be nice to have a few down the park, maybe in the skateboard, more in in the skateboard park, a few different areas. I have a picture of one that I can send to Fergus. It might be nice just to help enhance their experience in these playgrounds, you know. This is for Alan Cowan. He probably knows I'm after raising it already. The road from Barrack Street to Trinity Square is in an atrocious state. It's actually fallen away at one side, and it's actually filled in on a few occasions. I know it's not included in this year's funding, but if it can be at all added to it, if there was some funds left over, just in parts of it for the time being, especially from outside Newport Square, which also is in a bad state of repair, and the concrete is very sharp edges on it, and children playing there. So if that could be kind of filled in or looked at again, I know residents are asking it on numerous occasions over the years. And finally, to Fergus, the golf track, can I have an update on this? I think I went to the Environment SPC for discussion in the July meeting, and the benefits of this track will be enormous for people's health and well-being. And considering there's 6 schools around the area that could use this for physical education in the mornings for PE, doing their daily mile, all the primary schools, St. Declan's, Newtown, John of God's, Ursline, could all benefit from this in the mornings to get in there 30 minutes of exercise, as well as elderly people, as well as young people riding bikes in the morning, as well as runners, cyclists. So if you can have an update on that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Councillor. And our final speaker is Councillor Lola O'Sullivan. Lola.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I would like Fergus to maybe have a look at putting in a pump track, which is a track for skating beside the Inclusion Park in Tramore. The topography of the ground there would be very suitable for a small enough pump track with tarmac. And I will show him exactly what I mean. There's a hole in one of the ramps at the skate park which needs to be fixed. I do welcome and I thank Fergus for his time today. We spoke extensively today to ensure that we will have a one-way system at Cliff Road, Tramore from tomorrow morning, which is great because there have been very bad parking over the weekend. If the emergency services were needed there, it was probably impossible to get anybody in for help. And I'm sure today at 7 o'clock when we finish up here, there'll be a rush for Newtown and the Gillamine. So from the quarry out, it will be one way starting from tomorrow morning, which is very welcome. I know it was mentioned the quality of water at the pier in Tramore has been a problem for a long time, and we do need to get some kind of conclusion at this stage. I've been on to the EPA, I've also been on to Irish Water in relation to it. I do welcome the opening of the toilets at the pier. That's a significant improvement. I want to compliment our outdoor staff. They got a good review in the Irish Times this week in a report in relation to Tramore, and the reporter particularly complimented how clean Tramore is. So really the credit for this goes to the outdoor staff. As I said, parking is a particular problem at all beaches. So I'd appeal to people to park safely when they're going to whatever beach. And finally, Councillor Barry referred to the sign on the lifeguard tower in Tramore. I totally concur with him. It's better than nothing. That's what I will say to Councillor Barry. I was down there this afternoon. People are using the side of that lifeguard tower to go to the toilet, and the smell at the side of the tower is absolutely rank at the moment. So I would ask that maybe Fergus would get some of the outdoor staff out tomorrow to give the slipways a clean down, maybe at 7 o'clock in the morning, because the crowds there this is too late by the time the lifeguards come on. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm conscious of the time, but in response to Councillor David Daniels in relation to the driving range, maybe we start with that.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'd take that. Yeah, and I'd echo the compliments Councillor Daniels had in relation to the presentation of the golf course, and it's a credit to all of the staff working in the golf course. Yeah, there were plans previously for development of a driving range, and those plans are still in place. I suppose we are doing a review at the moment of all aspects of operations of the golf course, and we'd hope to bring that report back to council later this year. In relation to the dressing rooms at the RSC, there was departmental funding available for the provision of new dressing rooms, and the designs were drawn up and it was put out to tender. And based on the tenders received, there would be serious budgetary implications because the costs were much higher than the level of grant aid that was available. So it's under review, Councillor, and we hope to be able to develop the facilities at some stage. But certainly from a budgetary perspective, the tenders received were a bit on the high side. Thanks, Mayor.
Mayor, I might come in there. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, Mayor, I might come in and just answer the few questions there just as quickly as possible. Councillor Daniels had a couple of questions there, which some of them I'll need to get back to him on. We'll certainly have a look at the whole pedestrian crossing road safety issue at St. Beneficent's there and see if there's anything that could be done there to improve things. On the public lighting, I know we're waiting for a connection from the ESB before we can proceed, or a connection order from the ESB before we can proceed with those works. In relation to the graveyard at Ballygunner Temple, not too sure if that's our responsibility or not, but I'll make inquiries and ascertain what the story is with that. Councillor Quinlan, yeah, if you want to send me on, Councillor, the communication boards, which it certainly sounds of something that might be of interest, and we'll certainly have a look at that. I've noted and maybe Alan Curran is there, he might just note the questions raised in relation to resurfacing of Barry Street and Trinity Square, and we'll have a look at those, even though I doubt we'll get to them in the current year. The track in the People's Park, the SPC meeting, the July SPC meeting is actually on tomorrow afternoon, so I won't have an update on that until our next meeting. Councillor Sullivan had a couple of questions there in relation to the ramp at Skateboard Park. I've noted that. I'll last have a look at that with a view to repairing it. The pump track at the Inclusion Park is something we can have a look at. I suppose I don't know what they look like, to be honest, but it's I can have a separate conversation with you, and that just gets some idea of what's involved in that, what they look like, and what's involved in terms of scale, size, and otherwise. You mentioned the one-way system at Cliff Road. Yes, we'll have our contractors out very early tomorrow morning, lining the road and preparing for a one-way system there, which we'd intend keeping in place until the end of this summer period, and then reviewing then after that, and whether or not we make the permanent feature of life there or not will be a question we'll look at in September. The issue of the water quality at the pier, yes, again, just for noting, I suppose, and just I would have answered the question that earlier on. The outdoor staff, I'll certainly pass on the compliments to them. They've been doing a tremendous amount of work out in Tramore over the last and elsewhere across the city and county over the past couple of months, and dealing with all of the issues arising from outdoor dining and from the huge crowds that we've had at all of our amenity and beach areas over the past couple of months. And I certainly finally just the cleaning up the slipway there at the men's slipway in Tramore. We'll have a look at that and see if we can get that done as quickly as possible. I think that just about wraps up the questions that I had, Mayor. You're on mute, Mayor.
From my own point of view, can I just ask that over the summer, as we are doing work on our parks, that we would take on board a proposal I made at the last meeting for the provision of disability swings in our public parks. I think I've sent you in a photograph of one of the ones they're using in Dublin, and I think it would be very beneficial particularly to children with a disability. So you might take a look at that, please. Okay, I think that's the end of the questions.
Mayor, is Ivan going to come back on the pictures at the Regional Sports Centre and the driving? I didn't quite get.
Sorry.
Just clarification on what he intends doing.
Sorry, I answered those, Councillor.
You must have gone out for a break, Davy.
Him now to be nice, all right. Go ahead, Ivan. I know you answered them, but I wasn't quite clear exactly where we're going from here.
Yeah, I'll be very brief. There are plans for a driving range drawn up, and I suppose over the last 12 months in particular, the financial impact of COVID has been very significant on the golf course, and for that reason, we're doing a review of the operations of all aspects of the golf course. and we certainly look at the driving range in that context. The dressing rooms at the RSC, I've just said briefly that there was funding available from the department. We did some designs and put it out for tender, and the tenders that we received were very high, and we've basically had to go back to the drawing board.
Okay, thanks very much, Ivan. Thanks for that. Now, the next item on the agenda is the Road Traffic Act 1994 Traffic Calming Scheme at Faith Leg School, and Alan Cowan is going to take this first. Alan.
Mayor Ferguson, maybe, I don't know if Alan is still connected there. We circulated a report to the council there with the agenda and the drawing of the proposal. We've gone into public consultation on following it being aired at council previously, and we're proposing to widen the footpaths there, put in a new push button pedestrian crossing and other safety measures there at the National School in Faigleg on the Cheat Point Road, with a view to improving pedestrian safety and encouraging, I suppose, more kids to walk to school in a safer manner. We got a number of submissions in there as part of the public consultation process, which I've outlined in the report there. We've addressed some of them in relation to some of them in relation to having a pedestrian crossing, which is included in the plans. There were a number of other questions there relating to public lighting, which we'll address at a later stage. And I suppose the other things that was the other, I suppose, consistent topic that we raised there was the speed limit in the area, a reduction of that from 50 to 30 km, from 50 kph to 30 kph, and that is something we'll be addressing, I suppose, as part of the overall special speed limit review, which will commence later on this year. I don't know if we're quite happy to answer any questions that the councillor may have on it, Mayor. Otherwise, it's a matter for the council at this stage to make a resolution.
I have two councillors. Councillor Mary Roach, followed by Councillor Jody Power.
Very briefly, Mayor, I'm happy to propose the scheme. Could I just ask, in light of that, when we can expect it to be in place, and hope that it will be in time for the school return in September?
Okay, Councillor Jody Power.
Thank you very much. I really welcome this development. We've been asking it for quite some time now, so looking forward to it again. And as Councillor Rhodes said, when can we expect to have it? And could we include some rumble strips on the street, on the roads on both sides, because it's on an S-bend? If we could have rumble strips as well as do hazard lights, okay, on both sides, 200 metres from the school itself, that would be a great safety addition. Thank you very much.
Councillor Jody Power, are you seconding this?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
So proposed Councillor Roach, second Councillor Jody Power. Everyone okay with this?
Agreed, Mayor.
Agreed. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Mayor, just to conclude on that, if I might, now that the council have approved it, we'll go to tender this work as quickly as possible and the contractor in as soon as we can. It's probably unlikely that we get it done before September, but we'll get it done as quickly as possible thereafter.
Okay, the next item is taking charge of housing estates. With Alan not here, I just wonder who's going to take this from me.
I might take that, Mayor.
Yeah.
I mean, we circulated a report to council on this matter with the agenda, and what's being proposed at the moment is the taking in charge of 5 areas. They've been Kill St. Lawrence. There's 3 units at the Pines and Ballinkill, the Fairways Dunmore East, the Woods Dunmore East, and One Valley Tremore. And we're recommending that all of the 5 estates be taken in charge.
Okay. Councillor Pat Fitzgerald. You're on mute, Pat.
I'd like to propose that, Mayor, and what I did want to ask about some of the further estates in Dunmore East that have yet to be taken in charge. I'm delighted to see 2 of them has already been taken in charge now. With this, hopefully, this will go through today. But the ones down in the Glen and the Glen Ord, Fisherman's Grove, etc. Like, I know we have kind of went in and did some work on the roads there and things like that, but we still have not fully taken them in charge. And I was just wondering, when will that take place, or how are they progressing? Thank you.
Mr. Calvin.
Thanks, Mayor. We're currently working with the planning section in relation to resolving outstanding issues in those estates, and as soon as we're resolved and we're satisfied that the woods can be taken in charge, we'll be going through the due public process and then coming back to council for resolution in due course. But there there is work ongoing on them at the moment, but they're just not. We just haven't resolved some of the outstanding issues just as yet.
Councillor Davy Daniels.
Yeah, I second Councillor Fitzgerald there, Mayor. Just like to ask Fergus Galvin regarding the paddocks, Williamstown Road. This estate has been on the agenda for taking the charge for quite some time. So, Fergus, could you give us an update on that? Is there any proposals to have the work carried out?
Yes, Councillor, we would anticipate coming back to Council in the relatively near future with respect to that one and the recommendation to take in charge. But as I mentioned with some of the other ones in Dunmore East to Councillor Fitzgerald a moment ago, we're just haven't resolved. There are still a relatively small number of issues to be resolved in that state at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Mayor.
Councillor Eamon Quinlan.
Thanks, Mayor. Can I just get clarification, please, in relation to the Moonvoy Valley? While I very much welcome the taking in charge, it is a bit of a mixed estate. There's residential and then there's a commercial area within the estate. Can I just get on record here that we're taking the entire thing in charge and that we won't face difficulties going forward with the commercial area in terms of its upkeep? And secondly, if Mayor, if Ivan has any trouble in future, I think the 6 more councillors are happy to help him out. Thanks.
Mr. Galvin?
Yes, is a short answer to that, Mayor, yeah.
Okay. So we have a proposer and we have a seconder. All okay with that?
Agreed, Mayor.
Agreed. Yeah. Okay. Now we have no correspondence and we have no motions. So with that,
under AOB, Mayor.
AOB, of course, Councillor Roach.
Yeah. Just very briefly, Mayor, in relation to the meetings on Zoom, and while it's been absolutely excellent to keep the meetings going, I certainly, and I'm sure other members find it kind of frustrating, because while you get to come in and say your piece, you really don't get to drill down into issues or to come back and, you know, just because an executive, I don't mean any disrespect, but just because somebody from the executive gives an answer, it doesn't make it right or it doesn't make it acceptable. And you kind of miss that cut and thrust. And I'm just wondering, in the short, have we any prospect of the meetings come September being back in person? Are there any plans for that? Thanks, Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Jim Griffin, you have a question. I'll ask some of the executive to respond to you now in a moment, Councillor Roach.
Okay, Mayor, it's only in response to Councillor Roach asking a question about Phillip Street earlier, and Liam and maybe Ivan wouldn't be aware of what the answers, but I think Councillor Roach might have been asking about a property we used to call Mrs. Arnold's years ago. It's approximately about an acre and a piece stuck in behind Phillip Street, Clashray Place and the hypermarket. And I think, Mayor, it would be an ideal opportunity for Ivan and for Liam to have a look at this property. I can engage with them. There was an auctioneer's estate agents in Waterford City about 2 years ago had done up a plan for 14 infill houses in there. And I think it would be an ideal opportunity for some of the elderly residents there. We could perhaps put in a little village and take back some of the 3 and 4 bedroom houses that older people in that area would be occupying. They have the hypermarket, they have post office, they have the bingo in the forum. They have absolutely everything, butcher shops, the credit union, what an elderly person would look for. And I think it would be a great opportunity for the council to engage at this moment. And it's a great question from Councillor Roach. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Griffin, I'll ask Ivan if you would take a look at that site with that regard. Councillor Daniels.
Yeah, just a quick question, Mayor. Regarding the Zoom meetings, our ratings don't seem to be very high. Is there any reason for that?
They're probably
Anna might give us an update.
They're probably higher than they were when we were here in person. That's all I said to that.
Yeah.
Does anyone, maybe Honor, do you want to take the issue about meeting in person, or have we any guidance?
I might, Mayor, if you don't mind, just just very briefly. The short answer is we don't know, and I suppose realistically, much will depend on the overall national position in terms of guidance and the progress, or hopefully not the progress of the transmission of the COVID-19 virus over the next month or so. We would expect we discussed it briefly at management team earlier on this morning. and we would expect, I suppose, further sectoral guidance to issue during August. Was that an awful lot will depend on what happens at a national level over the next, I suppose, month to 6 weeks in terms of what we do and where we are come September. I mean, it would be our desire, I suppose, that we would get back to meet to in-person meetings where at all possible, and we will be looking to achieve that. And but I suppose also complying with national regulations and national guidance and whatever they might look like in say 6 or 7 weeks' time.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Donald Barry.
Thank you, Mayor. Just something came into my head there. Look, we forgot to wish Catherine Horan the very best on her retirement.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, and she has been very good to us all and answer our queries in that over the last while, and to wish her successor the best in her role. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we'd all like to be associated with that. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, that's the end of our meeting. Just to say that there's one thing I'm after taking from today's meeting, and that is the need for a workshop regarding the North Quays and indeed Michael Street. So I will undertake to organise such, say possibly it'll be September now, I'd say. But I think it's very important. We need to keep this issue. It's the most important issue facing the development of the city and the city centre and retail and all of that. So in my role as Metropolitan Mayor, I would have spoken to some of you individually, but I will undertake to organise a workshop in the first instance, and then we can bring it to a public meeting after that. Okay, so I want you to I wish you well for the rest of the summer. Enjoy the sun and enjoy the break. Take care.
See you in Gareth.